Walking down the streets of Mondstadt, one can't help but be impressed by our virtues of freedom. But alas, that is only created through our history filled with crass, and told now through relics en masse. Join me tonight as I explore one aspect of our nation, and even bring yourself some drink, as long as you'll join me as we think, and as we link what we know of our past. We all know this land is ruled by Barbados, the animal archon, and yet many are privy to its lack of presence. None know this more than those of years past. Thousands of years ago, the nobility, led particularly by Lord Lawrence of the Lawrence clan, rose in power across Mondstadt, taking hold of wealth and freedom. At first, the nobles were harmless, and actively participated in hunts and shared their spoils. This ruling class set an example for the people, guiding their subjects with their conduct and wisdom. So fervent in this pursuit did they keep pocket watches to keep themselves on a strict schedule, ensuring they were always well trained and mannered. To truly share their splendor, they held banquets and feasts, inviting all to dance and have their stress released. The nobles adorned royal flowers and plumes, even ornate masks, and yet when looking at these relics now, we can see they are fixated on the golden days of the past. Wearing all of these items increases one's ultimate ability, which is in tune with the nobility, wanting ultimate power, and even more so, this increase goes to everyone, much like how the royalty once acted. Soon after gaining power, corruption followed. This corruption is traced back to the Lawrence clan as they strayed into the path of depravity, with their weapons sacrificed for petty power. They enslaved others, funneled wealth for themselves, and used their banquets as pedestals. Mondstadt soon became a withering dungeon. To live and not be royalty was to not live at all, and those who were found enslaved were pitted against each other in arenas for entertainment. And thus the once free and prosperous people of Mondstadt entered the age of the aristocrat. Accounts of those who lived in this period still exist. A young squire by the name of Ragnvindr, part of the Starlit Knights, the main military force of Mondstadt, had written his experience as thus. The air was filled with stench of misery and the buzz of revelry. Every street was filled with depravity, and those unfortunate enough to remain were like flies stuck in the spider's web. Those within the force were blind to their aristocratic benefactors, but Ragnvindr had not once bought into their idealism as he saw destitute peddlers groveling on the streets in agony, spared no more by the wealthy. Aging soldiers grimacing in pain, with no support from those they protected, cast on the streets as mere invalids, and sounds of sorrow as families starved and were rejected as humans. These were all tiny wins to the royalty. Although much of the royalty shared in desecrating the people, there were some that saw reason and humanity. The Gunnhildr clan had existed long before the reign of the aristocrats and had helped overthrow the old archon. Once the aristocrats came into rule, the Gunnhildrs were fashioned as royalty, but wished to protect its people. They sought for its people to not be enslaved and for wealth and prosperity to be distributed fairly. Of course, to do so would be difficult, and they feigned their position, waiting for the right moment to strike. The accounts I've taken so far have reliability and authenticity, But this next one is presented under the guise of fiction, with the diction and creation lending itself credence to its usage. By looking at direct accounts of nobles, we can ascertain how they may have lived. One such noble is Dietrich, who, although was born a noble, was not yet poisonous and vicious. During his upbringing, the only thing worth criticizing was his simple, self-centered thoughts. Of course, in due time, he did end up finding a commoner on the streets that caught his eye, and, unaware of how to deal with the fancy he found, decided the best course of action was to kidnap her, as that was what his mother did whenever their cat had run off. There is no excuse for what he did, but it can be seen as an undeniable product of the nobles and their lineage. Not all sat idly during this time, and this was especially true for the Wanderer's troupe. Although mostly shrouded in mystery as they disbanded after this period, they played a big part in revolution. Their scattered records tell of their travels across many lands. They recorded songs to perform, some so powerful as to invigorate upon hearing. This troupe, however, was not a simple band of bards. They were warriors, and their songs not only enchanted ears of friends, but encroached to slay foes, and so some called them the Swordsman Troupe. This band of warriors, coming together under their love of song, was well rounded in their ranks. The Swordswoman wielded the flute, whose every slash hummed a tune of the wind. Her blade shone with every song and dance, reflecting crystals of sunlight in its movement. At a point, she was even dubbed the Dawn Light Swordswoman, as per the radiance she exhibited in every performance. The Harpist was a skilled archer, wielding the stringless, which served him well to produce music that could lure birds, and doubled as a bow to shoot them down. He needn't even look at the sky, but listen to the flaps of wings to shoot the birds down. Though impressive and skillful, the Harpist was equal parts playful and determined, and perhaps that part is due to his origins of Fontaine, a land known for its beauty and elegance, with those within reveling in showmanship. The Vanguard, whom joined the troupe as a late member, was Cruiselead, a former member of the Lawrence clan. He wielded the bell, with this weapon able to create shields to protect his allies and its connections and ties to the aristocracy. He was a vital piece for the troupe. Knowing the ins and outs of royalty, and due to his own predilection for change and wish to dismantle the aristocracy, he was all for revolution when the troupe had made convictions for a rebellion. The troupe was free by nature, having enjoyed their travels together, with the wind as their guide and the clouds as their witness. And so, having landed their way into Mondstadt, they felt travesty upon their condition. To see the state of affairs be akin to a prison while they were free put pins through their minds as they sang through the streets. And so they deliberated and devised a plan to overthrow the aristocracy. Before their plans are put into motion, one character of note should be mentioned. To complete the continuity of our tale, he was a traveler who left his previous life of privilege, traveling through forests and deserts, mountains and oceans, dodging danger and escaping imminent battles. He lived as a wanderer. Eventually, he found himself at Mondstadt, with his first impression being one of solemn melancholy, as he found a maiden to be sacrificed for the Ludi Harpistum festival. A once noble and enjoyable time turned into spectacle for the aristocracy. Landing himself into the city, he by chance met the conductor of the troupe, and through that encounter, the rest of the group. He too would join them as a lyrist, never forgetting the woman he met on that day. As days moved on, winds blew errant, unknowing of the winds and cries of suffering. The oceans ebbed and flowed, unable to sweep away the tyranny, and the trees bloomed only for themselves. unable to give beauty to those true desolate. The Troupe used the dead of night to storm the castle, with Cruzlead giving them information about passageways and weaknesses under defense. They were all ready to force the royalty to step down. What they didn't expect were the Starlit Knights foreseeing the attack. Such a gathering of personnel, coupled with the murmurings on the street, only served to increase suspicion and caution, and the aristocrats were ready for a fierce battle. Swords clashed, with the moonlight as guidance. Arrows rang in the castle halls, whistling to their targets. Songs filled the bloodied halls, but the Troupe could not succeed. Outnumbered, their stamina ran weak. The Harpist fired as many arrows as he could to allow the Troupe to escape, and the Sojourned Wanderer fought with his final breaths to let the Harpist fire. Some members managed to escape, while others were killed, and by a graceless god, the Swordswoman was captured and enslaved, forced to participate in gladiator matches. She fought valiantly, only to later meet her end, inspiring a young Ragnvindr who called himself the Dawn Knight in her honor, and sought the same path she once tread. Cruzlead, who was also captured alive, was met with a lesser punishment, though what that exactly entailed was not made public, though he was free to go, banished from his royal position. Things looked dire for Mondstadt, as even a band of resistance fighters were unable to overthrow the aristocracy, and their reign flourished ever so strong, chaining every citizen to the whims of the few. But this story does not end here. The actions of the Troupe would not go unsated, and we are proof of that. But for brevity, we will have to end here, as this is all we know of the time known as the aristocratic era of Mondstadt. Of course, feel free to explore and venture for yourself, as there's bound to be untold stories and even details to be garnered on your own investigation, as this was but a short ballad for your enjoyment. As such, I bid you all adieu, and hope the Animal Archon guides your way.